Trump says countries must accept deportees or lose visas. As new federal projections warned of a spike in coronavirus infections if shelter-in-place orders were lifted after only 30 days, President Trump said on Friday that the question of when to relax federal social distancing guidelines was the biggest decision I'll ever make. 70 people at San Francisco's largest homeless shelter have tested positive for the coronavirus, Mayor London Breed said on Friday. We are no longer trying to break up encampments, whether it's 1 tent or 15 tents. The Trump administration will issue visa sanctions against countries that refuse to accept people the United States aims to deport, the latest restrictive border measure implemented amid the coronavirus pandemic. Countries that deny or unreasonably delay the acceptance of their citizens, subjects, nationals or residents from the United States during the ongoing pandemic caused by SARS-CoV-2 create unacceptable public health risks for Americans, Mr. Trump wrote in the memo. As the number of intensive care beds being used in the state fell for the first time during the outbreak, according to figures released on Friday, the data showed that 18,569 people in New York were hospitalized with the virus, far below the dire projections that as many as 140,000 hospital beds could be needed as the outbreak peaked. In one of the most far-ranging attempts to halt the spread of the coronavirus, Apple and Google said they were building software into smartphones that would tell people if they were recently in contact with someone who was infected with it. It could be a useful tool, but it raises privacy issues. And in the United States, Michigan said it would forbid people from traveling between homes in the state beginning on Saturday, a sweeping expansion of the government's efforts to contain the virus. A major answer to the question of when, and how, Americans can return to public places like work and school could depend on something called an antibody test. A blood test that determines whether someone has ever been infected with the coronavirus. People who are believed to be immune may be able to safely return to work, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recently announced that they would begin using antibody tests to see what proportion of the population has already been infected. He said federal officials were discussing the idea of certificates of immunity, which could be issued to people who had previously been infected. As we get to the point of considering opening the country, Dr. Fauci said, it is very important to understand how much that virus has penetrated society. Immunity certificates, he said, had some merit under certain circumstances. The Wisconsin Department of Health Services said in a statement that there was some risk people had been exposed to the virus while voting or working at the polls. We hope the extraordinary efforts taken by local clerks, public health, voters and poll workers helped minimize any transmission, but we stand prepared to respond if that isn't the case, said Andrea Palm, the state health secretary. If voters or poll workers contracted the virus, the first new cases will most likely start emerging next week, the department said. We will aggressively investigate recent events at the home and, as needed, require the Commonwealth to adopt reforms to ensure patient safety in the future, said Andrew Lelling, the U.S. attorney who is jointly carrying out the investigation with the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. Michigan will forbid people from traveling between homes in the state beginning on Saturday, a sweeping expansion of the government's efforts to contain the virus. It's not my normal look, but we are not living in normal times, Mr. Bayer said on Twitter, where he posted a screen grab from C-SPAN showing him on the House rostrum holding the gavel, a large American flag behind him, wearing the protective gear. Even as public health officials recommend that people wear masks to guard against transmission, Mr. Trump has said he is not interested in wearing one, telling reporters that he could not see himself sitting at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office in such equipment. When the virus attacks people who are vulnerable like me, I feel like there is no help for us, Mr. Zor Win Tun said from his hospital bed. Fauci, the leading infectious disease expert in the U.S., said that a test to determine whether a person had been infected with the virus and had therefore acquired some level of immunity would be made available in coming days. Within a period of a week or so, we are going to have a relatively large number of tests available, Dr. Fauci said Friday morning on CNN.